darkness. I see darkness. That was the answer Arjuna gave. Drona was the teacher. There were so many students. Before you shoot the arrow, tell me what you see. One kid said, I see mountains, I see trees, I see one tree, I see branches, I see leaves, I see many birds, I see one bird. Another student said, I see a tree, I see a bird. Another student said, I see a bird. But this man said, I see darkness. And when drilled further, what do you mean darkness? Arjuna respectfully said, I see the darkness in the center of the left eye of the sparrow that is sitting on that branch. We all know this story. I see darkness. But this is something we may not know. I didn't know this until last week when I was researching for this talk. That was Mahabharata. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. In a very similar time, it's supposed to be the essence of the Veda. There is this four-liner that goes, Sadaivam Atmani Avaruddha Chittau Na Veda Kinchit Bahirantaram Va Yateshu Karo Nripatim Prajantam Ishau Gatatma Na Dadarsha Parthe. The last two lines mean, how do you define focus? Focus is like being that arrow maker who is sitting there doing his work, but even as the king goes by in a procession, making a lot of noise, this man doesn't even know that a king is walking by. That is focus. So when I look back at the story of Arjuna, I wonder, did he pierce the eye of the bird because of his focus? Or is the focus of the arrow maker even better? Because Arjuna at least is performing an act. At the end of the act, he will see whether he has succeeded or not. Think of the arrow maker. He is performing an act. He is preparing the best arrow he can. But he wouldn't know whether the arrow will hit its goal until somebody shoots it many years down the line. And think of the focus he must have had. Even when the king was passing by on an elephant, he didn't realize that. So that is my lesson when I look at the story of Arjuna and how he aimed. That is my lesson. I see that the right tool in the right hands will actually work magic. In fact, that's what I have brought to you here. I have brought a weapon. I have brought 6 shots. I am going to fire one shot at the end of every lesson to wake you up. In fact, when I was getting ready at home, my mom said, "Dey Sami kitta vachi eduthu poda." So this is prasadam for you. Number 1. The first prasadam says something. It says, right tool. But moving on, there was this book that I recently read. It's called Atomic Habits. Tiny changes that bring about remarkable results. In this book, the author talks about a particular scenario. He says, habits the person. We all know that. But he also says, habits, particularly small incremental changes in habits, is almost like going on a flight. So that is Los Angeles to New York. Assume you are on a flight and the pilot decides that he will just turn the direction of the flight 3.5 degrees. Right? That's 3.5 degrees. 3.5 degrees when an aeroplane starts is like 3 feet. But if you are at it across the length of the United States, you land hundreds of miles away in Washington, not in New York. He says habits are like that. Habits are not things that change you at the moment. Habits change you across the many, many moments that make up your life. You go to a gym today, do some push-ups and pull-ups. You cannot get a bicep expansion tomorrow. You order cheese burst pizza today and hog all night, you're not going to become overweight tomorrow. But incrementally, if you make that a lifestyle, that's going to have a definite, a clear impact on you. So that's a lesson we all learn in physics. Velocity. Velocity is not a scalar, it is a vector, there is a direction, and then there is a speed involved. So it is not enough if you are fast at something. You also need to know what direction to set and what direction to constantly reset. Steve Jobs used to talk about this sports person. His name is Wayne Gretzky. He was an ice skater, champion ice skater. And when asked, how are you doing it so well? He said, I don't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck will be. So, in any decision in life, signing up for a course, starting a work, doing some new business, whatever decision you take, do not just evaluate whether the decision is best for you now, but by the time you are done with that exercise, will it still be relevant? That is the lesson I get today from this exercise. So the second exercise, the second lesson is this. Aim right and do fast. That's me. We all know this game, don't we? Angry Birds, right? Even this teaches us a lesson. The most important lesson there is pull back to release forward. In our attempt to optimize everything, remove all wastage, squeeze out maximum efficiency from everything that we do, we sometimes don't plan for slack. Pulling back is as important as releasing forward. Why? Even Thiruvalluvar has said that. 486. Kural says, Ukkamudayan udukkam porutagar takkattu perundadaitu. The energetic and wise man who doesn't rush into the job, but instead waits a little and watches for the right opportunity. You know what it's like? It is not shyness, it is not lack of courage. You know what it is? It is like that kada, that ram, the battering ram. Have you seen it fight? Before it rushes forward, it will gather its feet back. Because it's creating the leap forward. That most powerful headbutt requires that gathering backwards. So many companies today, so many individuals today, we try to squeeze, we try to optimize everything. Companies like Google though, companies like my own, Zoho, we realize creative work requires the ability to allow people to make mistakes. Many creative, excellent stuff have come because people had the liberty to make some false starts, an occasional mistake, a misstep. Go ahead, that's all right. So you need to plan for slack because you need to step back to leap forward. In fact, this is Alice in Wonderland, and there is this famous Red Queen. She's famous for saying this quote about what is the enemy. We had a previous speaker talk about that too. What is the enemy of great? Good is the enemy of great. Why? Because it's hard to get a little better when you want to be consistently good. If you want always good as the answer, you will not experiment at all. And experimentation is important to get any better. So that's my third lesson. And the third lesson is optimization. 100% optimization is sometimes bad. That's to you. 100% optimization is actually bad. Let's move on to the fourth lesson. This is how I started. 6-year-old kid, my brother took me. He said, hey, I have laid out some cans, broken bottles. Play. Aim at the second can, aim at the first can. Try to knock it off the wall. That's how many of us start. And I think at that time I must have thought, oh, this is the game of catapult. This is the game of slingshot. Until when I was 9 years old, my brother took me to an orchard, a garden in the neighborhood. And there this was. It was a much harder challenge. 3 reasons. Reason number 1, I cannot hit the fruit. I have to hit that small stem and the fruit has to come. Challenge number 2, it is swaying in the wind. And challenge number 3, I have to do it fast. Anytime the gardener is going to come. I can't make too much noise. 3 complications. I think this is how Sachin Tendulkar must have felt. He was already very good. But when Shane Warne landed in India for an Australia-India test in 1998, this is how Sachin must have felt. He thought he was already good, but Shane was a genius. Out for 4. But guess what happened in the second innings of the same test? The second innings of the same test went like this. He was unbeaten at 155. 14 fours, 4 sixes. And we won the game. That is Sachin for us. But what actually happened? How did Sachin do it? To do that, to understand that, you need to read this book. This book is called Making Users Awesome. Written by a lady called Katie Sierra. She talks about how learning actually happens. She says, we think learning is about these 3 boxes. We want to do something but we can't do it. Then there is, I can do it but with some effort. Then there is, I can do it, I have mastered it, it comes automatically to me with no conscious effort. And we think this is how learning happens. Slowly, everything moves to mastery. And she says, if you are looking at true learning, this won't do. She says, never this. You actually need. This is called the learner mindset. At any point of time, you need to always wear the beginner's cap. You need to somehow push yourself to a learner mindset. And not only that, he also says, it's not just rightward progression. Sometimes you need to also do this. You need to push back something that is an automatic. You wake me up in the middle of the night, I'll still do it kind of memory. You need to take that and make it fun. For example, suddenly remember one fine morning you start brushing with the other hand. You'll injure your tongue. But that's a special experience. Suddenly you uninstall Google Maps and get lost in a strange land and try asking ways. This kind of moving from automatic to conscious is what Sachin did. He recruited L. Sivaramakrishnan, a Chennai bowler. He put up 5 stumps instead of 3 between the 2 innings. And he said, bowl me in the rough spot, not on the pitch, bowl me on the rough. And that is how he began to wear the learner cap. He became a learner again. I am learning how to play spin for the first time. I thought I had mastered it. I need to become a conscious learner again. So that, cricket's greatest rivalry, yes. But that is the learner mindset. Both of them are genius players. They have taught us a lot of lessons. And this is the lesson I take from them. And that's the learner mindset. Be a lifelong learner. Right. That's ball number 4. Moving on. We had another speaker talk about this. This is the story of David. And the missing picture here is this man, Goliath. Goliath is from the Philistine army. David is an Israeli boy. He's a shepherd. He's not even a fighter. David says, He is so big, I can't miss. I'm going to hit him. He's so large, I can't miss. Wherever I throw, he's going to be hurt. So, we have the story, it's an underdog story. He's the guy who defeated Goliath. He changed, it's a biblical story. He changed the course of history. Amazing. But, is that the full picture? Is there something else to learn from here? I wonder. And then I zoomed in. I saw that this man was armed with a spear, a heavy spear. Already heavy armor and a heavy spear. He had to aim, he had to lift, he had to make a lot of calculations, throw probably just one. Look at the other boy, David. Every stone was a weapon. He just had to stoop down and a new weapon. Because his weapon used stone as ammo. But for Goliath, it was one shot or not at all. So the lesson I learned from the David and Goliath story is you need to improvise. You need to pick things up along the way. You need to learn on the go. It is not enough if you learn at college and try using it at work. The thing you need to learn at college is how to learn at work. That is my request to you all. So that's the fifth lesson. And the fifth lesson is start with the right attitude and pick things up along you go, as you go. So that's my fifth ball of the day. So we have seen 5 balls. I'm going on to the last one, the 6th ball. This is my story. I'm sure this is perhaps your story too. Right? So I love, I lose, I cry, I bleed, I scream, I learn. And it doesn't end there. I repeat. Right? I'm sure all of you have this story. The thing about this story is, it has a personal impact on us. It gives us a special lens to look at the world. Every one of us looks at the world differently because of our experiences. They say, this is how learning happens and this is what we retain. We learn and we probably retain 10% of what we read. 20% of what we hear. Probably 70% of what we discuss. Not enough, not enough. 80% of what we experience. So my 6th lesson is actually going to be, hey, look at this weapon. What do you learn from it? I have a ball which has got a question mark written on it. What do you learn from it? It's not about just stuff that I learn and pass it on. Right? So, let others teach you how to walk. They will teach you how to walk. Great. Learn from them. But where to walk to has to be your decision. So, let others teach you how to walk, but you decide where to walk. So, to summarize then, before that, here is something interesting, guys. 80% of experience, 80% of what we experience, but 95% of what we teach. Say thanks to all the teachers here. 95% of what we teach. So don't just learn. Don't just learn. Using your personal lens, don't just learn. Learn to pass it on. Like I am doing here. I have shared 5 lessons with you. What lessons are you going to share with the others out there? So to summarize then, pick the right tool, set the right velocity, plan the right slack, have the right mindset, show the right attitude, and do your own right thing.